My name's Damon with Blue Fish Aquarium. We are going to be going over Crested Geckos as we're back in our breeding room for them right now. We breed a lot of them here in store. And if you find this video educational, don't forget to like and subscribe. Crested geckos are going to be one of the best and easiest to care for reptiles that you can get. And if you are a beginner reptile keeper, these are going to be an absolute great starter for you. Their lifespan is about 20 years or so, give or take. And they only get up to be about 6 inches or so from head to tail. This is an adult, or sorry, from head to butt. With their tail, you know, they're going to have a few extra inches. So this is an adult male here. This is a yellow Dalmatian. And he is about 4 or 5 years old right now. So he's just finishing up his breeding, and he'll be going to a new home after that. We only like to do it for about 6 years or so. We don't like to have that be their whole life or anything like that. They're wonderful pets and we love them very much, so we definitely want to make sure that they have a good life on top of working a little bit. So they're very fun, very handleable. They are nocturnal, so if you get them out at night or when it's dark, they will be a lot more jumpy, just a heads up there. So if they start being a little bit more sporadic, just know they're probably just in their nighttime phase. Right now it's in daytime phase, so they're very calm, not super jumpy. But they are very fun to take care of. For an enclosure, I recommend a 18 by 18 by 24 for them long term for an adult. If they're a little bit younger, you know, you can start off with a 12 by 12 by 18. Biggest thing is you just want to have a tank that's taller than it is wide in terms of the footprint. And this will allow them to climb a lot more. You're going to want to add a lot of foliage to the enclosure as well. If you do just like one vine, they're always going to be in that one vine. So if you add more foliage in there, you'll see them move around a lot more in the enclosure. They'll be a lot happier. They'll feel a lot more secure. And it's also a lot better for them in terms of stimulation. So if you don't have that for them, like I said, they're just going to kind of sit there, and they're already smooth-brained reptiles, so they don't have a whole lot of smarts going on. And if you don't give them anything to climb around in, they're not going to have a whole lot going on in there in general. Next topic we're going to be going over is going to be diet for the Crested Geckos. I have a few different options here in terms of a powdered diet for them, or just a quick, easy mix. So first off, I'm going to go over the Crested Gecko little food packs here. They come in 4 or 8 packs that you can get through us. But these are going to be very easy. You just open up the pack, drop it in there. It's good for about 36 to 48 hours before you need to remove it if there's still leftover foods. So these will be a good option if you're going on vacation and have someone taking care of them, so they can just open these up, drop it right in there. You don't have to worry about them making improper mix of the formula for them. So this will be a very good option here. Moving on, I have our Zoomed diet, our Pangea diet here, and a Repashy diet. Now, the Repashy diet's not the one for Crested Geckos. It's just to get an idea of what it is. So all of these are going to be a powdered diet, and all of them are actually going to be the same mix of 1 part powder and 2 to 3 parts water. And you mix it all together, and it becomes kind of like a baby formula kind of consistency almost. What you can do on top of these is going to be insects as well. You don't want to give insects all the time because they can get addicted to them and they'll stop eating this powdered diet for them, which is actually a lot better for them than the insects itself. But crickets once, twice a week, you know, a half dozen at a time at maximum. That's going to be very good for them. It'll also allow them to hunt a little bit and get some more of that mental stimulation I was talking about earlier. Just wanted to talk about feeding dishes and water dishes for them. I do highly recommend doing an elevated feeding dish for them. As they are arboreal, they will want to be able to get to their food higher up in the enclosure if possible. If you have it down at the bottom of the tank, they may or may not go for it as much. So to increase feeding activity, you will want to keep this up a little bit higher. Now this is just one example of it. Pangea also makes a magnetic one if you wanted magnetic. But there's a ton of different options for elevated feeding dishes for these geckos. Also just wanted to talk about this little gecko here as well. This is another adult male. This is a red. So not flared up all the way at the current time, but I just wanted to talk about when they drop their tails. I call them frog butts when this happens. But they do not grow back, unfortunately. They're one of the few geckos that their tails won't grow back. which is quite unfortunate, but I think they're quite cute this way anyway. But most crested geckos will drop their tails by the end of their lifetime anyway. So it's just a defense mechanism for them. They use their tail as a distraction if there's a predator, and they feel threatened, and they want to drop that as a a way to divert attention from them and onto a little flopping around worm. It's quite strange to watch when they do drop it. I've only seen it a few times though. Next topic we're going to be going over is going to be substrate, temperature, and humidity. So I've got a few different options here, and you're going to see a little resemblance to our previous video with our red-footed tortoises. So I highly recommend doing high humidity substrate for them, being your plantation soil, cocoa husk, and some mosses like the sphagnum moss here. There's a few different options of dehydrated mosses that you can throw into the enclosure with them, but this is just one that I had on hand already. So all of these together will increase the humidity of the enclosure as you mist it down and make sure that everything's staying nice and moist in there. In terms of temperature and humidity, we are going to want to see them at about 72 to 80 degrees. Anything over 80 and you're going to start seeing some negative side effects just with the temperature in there. So in terms of humidity, they're going to want to be at 60% at a minimum. So if they're shedding, you're definitely going to want to increase that well over 80%, even up to 100%. Just make sure it's not sopping wet in there and they'll be completely fine. So too low or too high of humidity can lead to respiratory infections, which can then lead to some other issues down the road as well. So to monitor these, just because they're in a smaller enclosed enclosure, you can use analogs for them pretty easily. You don't need to go digital. So real quick, let me grab these out. So your thermometer here just measures temperature for them. It's relatively accurate. It's not as accurate as a digital by Exoterra, but it's pretty close. It's always going to be within a couple degrees of what it actually is in that spot, which is great. So, and then also we have our hygrometer, and same deal here. Not as accurate as the digitals, unfortunately, but again, it's very close. It's right in the area that it needs to be. So if you're just looking for quick and easy solution, and these are very easy geckos to take care of, it does not need to be perfect. They are not overly sensitive. So as long as they're within that ballpark that I mentioned, they'll be completely fine. Next thing we're going to be going over is going to be lighting and heating for crested geckos. Now I have a ton of different options here. So with these two LEDs right here, these are both actually the same LED, just made by a different brand name, even though it's by the same company. This one's going to be controlled using a remote, where this one's going to be controlled using the Terra Sky is going to be used using a remote. And that's how you control the light and the lighting spectrum and what color comes out of it. And the Aqua Sky here, this one's controlled by an app called Fluval Smart. Now you can program day and night cycle. You can program the actual color spectrum of your lighting throughout the day, and you can actually make it and manipulate the lighting throughout the day as well. So you can have it be bright, dark, red, purple, blue, whatever you'd like with it. And both of these are going to be very good for live plants if you wanted to do a bioactive setup for a crested gecko. So this one here is just going to be a standard day and night LED. It's got white light for day, blue light for night. I don't recommend running blue light every night. I mean, geckos don't always live in like full moon setting, so it's very normal for them to be in pitch black, and they do like that quite a bit. Blue light will also mess with your sleep patterns as well if you leave this on at night and you have it in the room with you. So do keep that in mind. If you start to not sleep so well because you have this on, just turn it off. It's not going to hurt them. They don't need the blue light. They'll be completely fine. So standard light, it's not going to grow plants very well, and I don't recommend this one for a bioactive setup, but if you're just looking for a cheap LED that you can throw on there, this is a good comparable option. So moving on to heating for them, if you do need, because again, they do want to be right around 75 degrees, give or take a few degrees or so. I have some different options here. So you can go with a ceramic heat emitter along with a small dome. These are very low wattage ceramic heat emitters. They'll increase the temperature by about 5 to 10 degrees or so, but it will have a gradient. So down towards the bottom of the tank, it will be a lot cooler than up towards the top where this bulb actually is sitting. Now this doesn't give off any light, which is great for them, so you can run it 24 hours. It's not going to keep them up at night, keep them asleep at night, and they'll still have that day and night cycle, which is very imperative for them. We also have our heat mat here. These come in a lot of different wattage and sizes depending on what you need, but this is just a small one that I grabbed. You can just stick these directly on the glass. They don't get super hot. The biggest thing is just check it out, feel it every few days or so, just to make sure it's not getting too warm or anything. But typically these will sit right around 85 degrees or so, which is a little bit warm, but it'll gradient off. They don't need to be on it directly. So if they feel a little cold, they can move on to it. It's not going to burn them or anything like that. Just make sure you do check it though, because sometimes they can have some small errors in them and heat up a little bit warmer or not heat up at all, which is unlikely, but it does happen. So do be a little bit mindful of that. Just wanted to take a step back towards foliage that I was talking about before. You can add driftwood, little moss vines by Exoterra, or really any of the vines that they have, and that'll work great. But in terms of foliage here, I've got flukers, reptivines. They are wonderful little vines. They're 6-footers, so when you can cut them up, they come with multiple suction cups, so you can put them throughout the tank. So it's not going to be a problem in terms of quantity for you here. They'll last a real long time as well. The vines are going to be very important to them. The more coverage and more foliage that they have in there, the more secure they're going to feel, and the more often you're going to see them moving around in there. Now, if you don't see them moving around during the day, that's very normal. They're nocturnal, so they sleep during the day typically, and they don't do a whole lot, unfortunately. But at night, if you have them in your room, or if it's dark and you're just sitting in there, you'll definitely hear them plopping around from branch to branch and vine to vine. It's very, very funny. Just wanted to make a brief mention as well. All the products that you saw today, we do ship out from our website, which is bluefishaquarium.com. So if you liked any of this stuff and you would like to have it purchased, please do visit the website. Anything that's over $50 will be free shipping for you as well, so do not worry about that. Only thing that we do not ship is going to be heavy substrates like gravel, sand, that type of deal. Also glass tanks and stands. So if it's super heavy, we most likely will not ship it. Just wanted to briefly introduce these gargoyle geckos. I have a red male here and a red female. This is a breeding pair that we have. They are wonderful pets as well. They are very close relatives to the crested geckos and almost have identical care, almost. So they're a very comparable reptile to the crested geckos if you're looking for something a little bit different. We'll be doing a video fully entailing on what they need and requirements and some info about them in the near future. If you found this video educational and interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Blue Fish Aquarium, and we hope to see you in the next video.